Welcome to Teach the Nation, episode 2 of our Unplugged Conscious Leadership series. Today we will explore leading from a place of well-being. And last time, for episode 1, we had a special guest, our board member and CEO of Time Bank, Cheslin Jacobs. So if you have missed the conversation, head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and give us a like if you like the content we're creating. And for this special episode, we bring real stories today and data together to explore what teacher well-being truly looks like in the classroom, in the schools, and beyond. So our conversation today will be grounded from the findings of Teach the Nation 2025 Teacher Wellbeing Report, with insights from 55 of our fellows across 4 provinces, naming Gauteng, Western Cape, KZN, and Eastern Cape. We'll connect these data with lived experience from 2 phenomenal educators today. Mr. Llewellyn van der Ros, National Award-winning teacher, also teaching at Tuscany Primary School, and Ingrid Beukes, a former principal with deep experience leading school transformation at St. Raphael's Primary School, Athlone. Welcome both to us today. And just before we started, and to get a bit to know who is the person, who is Ingrid, who is Llewellyn, we are very curious of what inspired you. Let's start with you, Ingrid, to become an educator, to join that field. And what's the one thing that still gives you hope today in this very meaningful, influential position?
Thank you so much. I was a high school learner during a very difficult period in our country's history, during a political turmoil. And it was a teacher and a group of teachers that made me believe, a girl born on the Cape Flats in a 1-bedroom flat, that anything is possible. They also made us believe that we were going to be the generation that's going to effect the change in our country. And so the one thing that I still believe as an educator is that we deal in hope. But further to that, when I look at Ingrid and why I still teach, I use the analogy of, are you a thermometer in the sector or are you a thermostat? Now, I choose to be a thermostat because you set the conditions and you regulate the conditions that you are in. And so as a thermostat, I believe that I can still go into the teaching environment and be an agent of change and a dealer of hope, because that is what teachers did for me so many years ago.
And maybe to build on what you saying, what is the one spark for you that actually make you believe in yourself from that particular teacher?
I believe that I can change a child's future, either for good or for bad. And I choose to be the good agent for that child, the hope, the belief, the one that's going to drive him or her to believe, no matter where they come from, that anything is possible in this life. And I do that through education.
And so true. Teachers spend 7 days out of 5 days out of 7 with a learner in the classroom. And for you, Llewellyn, what brings you to that very interesting and influential space of being a leader in the education sector?
You know, Emily, I think that I never knew or thought that I wanted to be a teacher. After I finished grade 12, to my dismay, I passed with 5 distinctions. I had no idea what university would be like. What is university? Because I come from a family where nobody's ever been exposed to tertiary education. Similar to Ingrid, my mother stays in a RDP house with a 1-bedroom a house, basically. And I didn't know what is beyond that? I never knew. And it was teachers who took me by the hand. And I vividly remember it was on the 7th of January of that particular year where we got our matric results. And as I said, I passed. And then I didn't know that the previous year I had to apply for university already. And in my mind, I thought, okay, I want to be a dentist. And I went to go and work. I took a gap year, and it was almost, I was rejected for dentistry, and teaching was the next option. But if I look back on my life's journey now, I really believe that I didn't choose teaching. Teaching chose me. It was ordained. It was part of the journey of my life. And when I look back now, I laugh at the fact that I cannot picture myself being a dentist even. My heart beats in the classroom. I hold on to the words of Kofi Annan, who once said, literacy is the bridge from misery to hope. And I stand as a witness that literacy was, in fact, the bridge from misery to hope. And then the slogan of my alma mater, University of the Western Cape, it says, from hope to action through knowledge. And that is what I try and live out within my classroom. That is why I'm passionate about reading for meaning. I'm passionate about literacy and changing the game, changing the trajectory. I'm also teaching at the school where I was a learner. So it's a full circle moment for me. I know the learners, I know the community. And yeah, that is what inspires me every single day.
So beautiful. And both of you have a calling for teaching. And teaching, like we say, very influential on the minds, to shape the minds and the hearts of the future. But also where much support is needed in your own well-being. And diving a bit deeper into the subject that we're discussing, we're having a conversation about today, leading from a place of well-being as a teacher, as a leader. And I wanted to give you some context of what's the stats saying about teacher well-being in South Africa, and what is the stats saying from the report that we just baseline across 55 of our fellows. In South Africa, a study reveals by the research on socio-economic policy that 50% of South African teachers are considering leaving the profession due to excessive workloads and stress, highlighting urgent needs for mental health support and policy change in the education sector. And from our well-being report that we baseline, the data also show that 76% of a teacher that we baseline still felt they were not coping well with workload. Only 24% felt positive about the psychological safety and about the emotional resilience. How does these stats speak to you? Starting from you, Ingrid, being a school leader also, how does it land for you from these stats that is coming more and more around teacher well-being?
So your question, Emily, is?
How does that these statistics actually speak for you when you heard about teacher well-being and the different challenges that they're actually experiencing at the moment?
So Emily, I mean, Llewellyn and I had a call last night with each other, but in this past week, every teacher that you encountered said it was a crazy week. It was a terrible week. But it was not only confined to this week. It's every other week when you speak to teachers. So it is real. It is definitely happening in our schools. And so for me as a leader, the one thing that needs to happen and that I believe is that my love language is giving. Okay. And so if I had been at a school, and just using the example of this past week, it's an exam week. We started with exams. I would be intentional in terms of taking care of teachers' well-being during the week. And between the deputy and I, we would actually slot ourselves into the exam timetable to go and invigilate so that teachers could have a tap-out session. And a tap-out session would be that they had time for themselves. And so you show them, you model what it looks like. You actually force them. You're intentional to make them take time out to spend time with themselves. And it's something that I've had to learn over a period of time in the sector, that I am important and only I can love myself as much as I can love myself. No one else will do it. And in order for me to do that, I need to take care of myself. So I'm intentional about my own well-being. And therefore, after 35 years in the sector, I still want to be in the education sector. I still want to teach. And so as a school leader and a school manager, you need to be intentional. If we want to turn around the stats that you have just cited, so that we make workplaces places where people want to be, despite the challenges that the sector is giving to them. I'm going to pause there. I could be saying quite a bit still.
No, it's all interesting. And Ingrid, that's so important and true. Like, first accepting, I don't know if it's from Spider-Man, every hero come with
A cape.
a responsibility with it, and to accept. You can influence 40 kids, expose them, role model, you can influence your teacher component, and there is responsibility, and you have to be intentional to take care of yourself. And what about you, Llewellyn? Like, what stands for you when you hear about these stats?
Emily, I think that leadership plays such a critical role in teacher well-being. And what I particularly like about Ingrid is that she always draws on practical examples, like the practical example that she made now about something as simple as the invigilation roster, giving teachers that time to tap out. So for me, people often ask me, how do you do it? How do you maintain so positive and so energetic and so vibrant? I think it's about fostering a culture in the space where you are at. I might not have been a principal of a school, but I hold a leadership position. So I set the tone. I set the mood. I set the weather for the day. It is about, Oprah Winfrey was a global phenomenon in her time. She had a talk show for 25 years, and she was the number one talk show globally for 25 years. And every single person that she interviewed people like George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, and even Beyonce. In all her Beyonce-ness, I'm quoting Oprah Winfrey. She said after every show, everyone asked her, was that okay? What was the message that she learned from that was that every human being wants to be validated. They want to know, am I doing okay? Is what I'm contributing, does it matter? They want to be heard. They want to be seen. And I think that is a critical culture that must be fostered at schools to keep the passion alive. And it is incredibly sad to see. I mean, Ingrid and I come from two different eras, but my peers in my eras, my two hands are too little to count of how many of my peers have left the country to go and teach abroad because the circumstances and the contextual factors in South Africa are not what is ideal. And yes, we don't live in an idealistic world, but support is needed. And therefore, I think it all boils down to leadership. Leadership within a school, leadership within the district, leadership within the province. Support is needed for teachers. Intervention is needed. I know that the WCED is working on building more schools. The minister is on a project for rapid school building, and maybe all of these things won't happen overnight, but we need to work towards it. We need to work towards it, and I think it starts really. It starts fundamentally with schools, school management teams, creating a culture that make teachers want to show up for work. I believe that a happy worker is a productive worker. And when it comes to, there's so many variables. I mean, discipline is a big challenge in schools. And that is one of the things that really drains teachers. Governing bodies need to join hands with school management teams and have code of conducts in place that has people or learners held accountable for behavioral issues. So psychosocial support needs to be in place at schools. So there's a culmination of factors that contributes to teacher well-being. And I really believe that your teacher in the school is your most valuable resource. You can have AI, you can have smart boards, you can have whatever in the school, but your teacher is the most valuable resource in the school. It remains a critical profession, a noble profession, and I think it really has to be protected. And the departure point is teacher well-being.
So true, Llewellyn and Ingrid. It is a systemic priority where everybody need to pull the sleeves and make it a priority, not so much a buzzword, but we're actually seeing the impacts it does have on the individual, being intentional about it, but also the lives that the individual is championing around, especially a teacher who are champions for their learners. And we also know that you talk about context, Llewellyn, that in some of our classroom, learners can come to the classroom hungry. Some of our schools have beautiful food feeding programs that help cope with that type of bridge, that barrier to learning. So when teachers have also to deal with learners also in a state where it's beyond their control, like their context where really can impact the way they learn also. And from our data, some of the teachers that we baseline, they also struggle to regulate with emotional resilience. So now you can have from the context, it's a reality. Kids come to school hungry. Now they have to deal with that reality, even though they get support from the school. Many of our schools have feeding scheme, but they also need to support with their own emotional resilience. And in that particular subject, as a former principal, how do you practically, Ingrid, experience and build emotional resilience in your role? And what do you wish more people understood about that?
Okay, I want to start off with something Llewellyn ended off. As a school manager, one of your responsibilities is that you're an asset manager. And sometimes we forget that your staff establishment is one of your assets, like Llewellyn says. And so you have a policy around how you take care of assets at school. How do you distribute textbooks? How do you distribute data projectors? So one of the things we did intentionally was to develop a policy around staff development that had components around building the professional capacity of teachers. And further in the policy was to establish a well-being committee that took care of that component of the staff. And when we speak about staff, we don't only look at teachers, we looked at support staff, your administration, your people that are responsible for maintenance, our volunteers that came into the school. We looked at that holistically because all of them contributed to what it is that we were able to achieve at the school. And then further to that, there was also a team building component as part of this group, and we developed a policy. And so we were intentional by developing a calendar for social emotional well-being, building it. We were intentional about ensuring that these activities took off so that it's embedded in the school's culture. And I will explain to you how this thing translated over into the learners, because we duplicated some of the practices into our classrooms. As Llewellyn has highlighted, discipline has become one of the major challenges that teachers face. And so you need to be beside being an asset manager, you need to be a risk manager as a school principal. And what this group did was we did an audit around who we bring onto this team. That would make, so it's about you being a talent scout as well as a school manager with your SMT. And so we brought a mixture of experienced teachers has been in the profession for not too long, and then very, very new and young teachers. And I promise you, the excitement of what they brought to the table was just unbelievable for me. And through this policy and this intentional kind of actions, we built a school brand. And I remember meeting Llewellyn a few years ago for the very first time. And our school participated in a Grow Smart competition. Only 3 learners participated. But the whole staff was present on the Saturday with our school sweater. So we projected what a brand must look like, how they cooperate, and we showed what collaboration should look like. And that was not artificial. It was what we experienced, and it was the little things that we introduced to build the brand, to make the school a place where people wanted to teach, where people wanted to bring their children. And so some of the activities was that we introduced a morning brief, and a morning brief was not about making announcements. It was about giving people an opportunity. And so you build the culture, you embed it, and you institutionalize it, becomes part of the school culture. So we had a roster. People come in and you are responsible for motivating that staff on the morning. We all come, we all go. But then there was also tap-in sessions. I spoke about tap-out sessions. There was tap-in sessions. So on a Sunday night, this group would have activities and we would get a message, you got served. Be in the staff room at 7:30. And then they would have arranged with me or with the deputy, what are we going to give them? And then it was just to connect on coffee. A coffee break with a donut, and I like making pancakes. And they loved seeing me making these pancakes when they walk in. Nothing said, just having a cup of coffee and tapping in with each other. Further to that, one of the practices that we introduced as an SMT was on the couch. So everything in a school is not only about being nice. It's also about addressing the uncomfortability, having fierce conversations. And in order for you to be able to have a fierce conversation, you needed to build trust. And so I would invite intentionally people to have an on-the-count session with me, just to check in with them. How are you doing, Emily? Is there anything that you need? Is there anything the school can do to assist you? What can I do to assist you? And so you start connecting with people. And for me, one of the biggest lessons has been that as a school leader, you must be authentic. They must see you at your best. They must see you at your worst. And they are the people. You're only as good as the team allows you to look as a school leader. And so they were the people that carried me during a very difficult time when I lost 4 parents, my two in-laws and my mother and my father in 10 months. But this was the team that was there for my social, emotional well-being. And so that is the kind of actions that we duplicated and we reciprocated to each other. And so that is just a few of the examples as a school leader that we implemented it, but we realized that it needed to be intentional. But besides the nice things, we also got health professionals in to teach them in terms of how to regulate their own emotions, and that it was okay not to say, I'm burned out, I'm tired. It was okay, because the best lessons are learned by going through it and navigating through it and understanding that there's a group of colleagues that's able to catch you when you fall and pick you up when you fall. And so those are practical examples, Emily, of what school leaders can do if you really want to make a difference and ensure that our young people do not leave our country or leave the profession. Because I do believe, like Llewellyn, it's a noble profession. It's a calling. We have the power. We are able to influence. We have the future of our country in our classes. They are sitting in benches. They are sitting on a chair in our spaces where we are leaders. So you might not be a leader of a school, but you're definitely a leader of a class. And so that's the space that you can control. And so that was also one of the sessions we had, the spaces where you can influence and where you can change.
That's so incredible, Ingrid. Well done for that and creating a powerful sense of belonging through connection and relationship building. I mean, like, we talk about well-being, we talk about, practices, but you connect, you socialize, and you support each other. And that's beautiful to witness and listen from your experience. I'm curious from Llewellyn. I'm sure, Llewellyn, you also are a very influential mentor in your school. And Ingrid, you were saying you will bring experienced teachers on the table and you will bring the younger teachers. I'm curious from you, Llewellyn, speaking to connection and bringing in new recruits, new teachers at the school. As a mentor, what do you think of the best way to actually support these new teachers so that they can feel they can connect better to the culture of a school, to the support of a school offering? Because sometimes, you don't have all the information, so you need different point of support. So how do you, as a mentor at school, receive these new recruits and, build their sense of connection to the school and its vision?
Yeah, you know what, Emily, as I'm sitting here, I was a few weeks ago, I just have a burning comment that I want to make. I was in a session where Ingrid presented on teacher well-being, and some of the practical examples, I was just in awe listening to her, as I still am now, listening to her on those practical examples, and I took it back to my school, and some of the things, it flourished, I love it. A lot of things are easy in theory, but with implementation, we seem to fall flat on the face. And when we draw on people who has walked the path, who has walked the journey, and we learn from them and we implement it, that is when success follows us. When I started at Tuscany Primary School in 2017, I was very, very fortunate when I started there, because many of the teachers who taught me were still at the school. And over the 8 years that I've been there, there's been a great transition. So which means that a lot of novice teachers came in. If one of those teachers had to step into our staff room today, they wouldn't recognize what is happening there, because about 80% of our staff has changed and it's all novice teachers coming into the system. But that responsibility then fell on me in the same way that I was received by experienced teachers. They really, really cared about me. They took me by the hand, not only with curriculum, but also with emotional support, because there's a key word that you use, a key phrase, emotional resilience. And resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity. And none of us are exempted from life's adversities and vicissitudes. So we all go through these things. But then I took that responsibility on me because, in the words of Michelle Obama, for every door that has been opened for me, I try to be an open door to somebody else. And here is what I've learned. Let's invite one another in. So I invited the teachers in. Early in my career, I was appointed as the head of English at the school from grade 4 to grade 7. But as I was appointed, I was always intentional about professional development, professionally developing myself because when you get out of university, you're a raw product. You don't know the nitty-gritty of school and the day-to-day logistics and I mean, you don't learn these things at university. You only learn it in the actual classroom, in the space, in the school setup. So what I've done is, I believe that the departure point, the golden nugget, the key thing is relationship building. It is the departure point. It is about building a relationship with the person, being intentional about showing an interest in them as a person first before we tap into Bloom's and Barron's taxonomy. So Maslow before Bloom's. It's about getting to know that person first, making them understand that there's nothing different between me and you. We are in the same space, we're in the same boat, and we will take each other by the hand. And what people must also not be oblivious to is that the novice teachers coming into the space, they also bring something fresh to the table. And I believe in synergistic collaboration, synergizing about your collaboration, because 1 + 1 isn't 2. 1 + 1 is 5. You bring your idea, I bring my idea, and we come up together with a whole new fresh idea. In that way, they feel that they have contributed to this. For example, when we look at language enrichment projects such as spelling bees, we were the first school to host the first ever Cape Argus Primary School quiz. I went to the editor-in-chief of the Cape Argus at Independent Media and I said, why is it only at the high schools? I would love to have it at the primary schools. And he gave me the green light and he supported the initiative. My colleagues supported the initiative. And selling that idea to your colleagues, making them understand this isn't my project. I want you to work with me. Let's try this for our learners. And it was a raging success. And I think that project that I initiated at the school was a breakthrough in terms of my colleagues seeing the vision and me then showing up and leading of what it is that we want to do, modeling, as Ingrid so rightfully also mentioned, modeling what you want to see in others, showing them this is the way that we should do it. Not only telling them that this is the way we do it, but showing them this is the way we do it. Over the years, I've also had many student teachers who are in their 3rd year and in their 4th year come into my class to do their teaching practice or just to come for observation. And I will model lessons to them. We unpack their lesson plan. We look at what they are currently busy with in the university. And I've been at university about 10 years ago. So it's still very much the same, of what a few things here and there change, but we can still speak the same language. I can still ask them, did you guys also look at Lev Vygotsky's theory or this thing or that thing? And how do you understand it? This is how I understand it, how I implement it in the classroom. You know, that kind of thing. It's really about, and once you've built that relationship, you foster that relationship, and people can see you are not just a talker, but you are a doer. You are leading by example. You are modeling. They follow suit. And in that, you are building a culture. You're fostering a culture at the school. So those are some of the things that I've done in my role as a leader, as a mentor, at the school where I'm at. And also having that same mindset and duplicating it into the classroom, because it must spill over into the classroom, because the learners, they are our client. We are there for them. We want the best for them. We want to show up for them. And those children sitting in that class, you could be the only constant thing in their life. So those are some of the things that I have done as a mentor in my capacity as a teacher.
Beautiful. And I'm hearing a lot of building the clarity around, what is needed, what's the priority of a school, what's the vision. Ultimately, very much learner-centered. And I like the spirit created around togetherness. But also, like you said, Ingrid, building on what Llewellyn had just said, you say sometimes you have the couch moment, just to bring awareness, for us to move forward, what we need to work on now as a collective, as a team. And from your experience, Ingrid, what do you think of real opportunities and constraints school leaders face actually in shaping a culture of supporting teacher well-being, like you already mentioned practically before?
I think, Emily, there are many opportunities, and so it depends on your mindset as a leader. You've applied for the post as school manager, and so you are going to be key with your SMT to drive what you think the vision of the school is going to be with your school governing body. And so I go into any workspace that I go in terms of a subtraction mindset. We all speak about growth mindset. I speak about the subtraction mindset. And so one of the opportunities that I like to look at is teachers complain about workload, and you've cited that in your introduction. And so what is it in terms of a subtraction mindset that we can do? And so at the school, one of the things was there would only be one monthly meeting and no other monthly meetings, because many of these things can be done via a voice note, via a circular. But in education, they say if you want to hide something from a teacher, put it on paper, because they're not going to read it. So we soon realized that a voice note carries a lot of weight, because it makes you curious. We as human beings, we are curious as to, you're in a meeting, you actually want to listen to that voice note and keep it to your ear to hear it. And so we were again intentional. When we sent out the voice notes, it was a prepared script with what it is that we required, people then in their own time. So people valued the fact that they had the opportunity to mark, to connect to other people. And then we were also intentional around when extramural activities needed to take place. So we designed it on one day where we would extend the day, and we would actually ensure that all learners participate in extramural activities, so that it's not a opportunity, it's not a culture where it's here, it's there, it's all over the show, and people actually are involved with so many things. Again, as a risk manager and an asset manager, you also needed to know where your staff was involved in, again, subtraction mindset. So Emily, you've got so many activities going. Can you manage? Let's look at who can help you, who can give it to each other. And so the opportunities, I think, there are just so many opportunities that school management teams can provide. And Emily, once that started, the deputy and I I came new into the school, I found the deputy there. But the rest of the SMT were younger people that was employed. And they soon emulated the kind of behavior, modeling the kinds of things they saw, that when they asked me, can we do these things with our teams that we were leading? And I said to them, I don't mind, you do what you need to do. And one of the outcomes was that one of them came to me and said to me, you know what, can't we just have a Be Nice week to Emily? And I said, so tell me, what does it mean? And the person says to me, so what we'll do is Emily will be the person that we will just this week be the center around. And people were very creative. Emily would get luxuries. If they knew that she liked dried fruit, she would get dried fruit, whether it was notes. And that duplicated into the classroom, because then children got to know teacher Emily, because she was the person. And it was announced over the intercom that the Be Nice week to the teacher was teacher Emily. We then duplicated that into Be Nice to grade 4A for a week. And so we duplicated that kind of practices into the classroom. And that is just some of the activities. What are some of the constraints? There are many constraints. It is the administration load that we have as school managers. And I was intentional about that. I came to school and I blocked out administration time for me. The rest, and I would do the same with the deputy, we were intentional then about connecting with people and then checking in with people and checking out with people. So that administration, and we always used to say that we manage systems, but we lead people. And in order for you to lead people, you need to connect with them. The other constraint is obviously going to be time. And then one of the biggest ones is people are going to cite money. And many of the activities does not need money. It needs you to be creative, to be innovative, but also there are other stakeholders. Education and school should not be confined to the fences of the school, the walls of a classroom. There are stakeholders out there. You must just ask them, because teaching teaches you to become a professional beggar, not only a beggar for money, but for skill sets of people that they can add to your school or to the school that where you work at, so that you build and you create that opportunities for people, for their well-being, for their social, emotional well-being. So the constraints are more currently for me than the opportunities, but there are lots of opportunities. You just need to sit down, you just need to apply your mind and be creative around it.
And that's I'm really inspired. That's so and it resonates with me. I've read somewhere that one of the biggest weakness of a human being is actually to acknowledge and recognize its own strength. And we're not always inclined to that. And that's so beautiful to see that your school is doing that. Recognition, acknowledgement, and finding creative way to do that. And as you say, opportunities are created, and you can create opportunities from the constraints that you have at school. And going back to you, Llewellyn, listening to you, Ingrid, as a principal, and you, Llewellyn, as a mentor and a teacher at the school, I wanted to start with the gloomy type of stats, just to put it out there and see what you think. What do you think from these? But we also witness a lot of positive shifts from our well-being report, where 93% of the teachers that was baseline show either positive and mixed progress in well-being over the year between the baseline and the second assessment that we do. So it just means that they are shifting either towards from a red to a yellow or to a green, which is great. And the number of teachers doing well overall rose from 39 to 60% between the baseline and the second assessment. And that just shows that, they feel that support was provided. And the teachers reported their highest improvement in pedagogical confidence, 36% improve, emotional awareness and joy, 18% improvement. And from all of that, learner engagement increases by 25%. From you, Llewellyn, I know you are very passionate about what you do, and you're very inspirational in what you do. from your practices in the classroom and you being very intentional around well-being, your learner well-being, what have you actually listening to the stats that I have provided, have you seen a direct link between your own well-being and how your learners show up in your classroom?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really like the stats that you mentioned there now. The one thing that stands out for me is the learner well-being and the learner engagement that improved over time. And it again circles back to the relationship between the teacher and the child. That relationship grows over time. And even your naughtiest child, by November this time of the year, you love them. You don't want them to go. They see you with different eyes. And yeah, Emily, I'm an avid reader, so I absolutely love reading to develop myself, and I love reading self-help books also. And I came across this profound quote by Haim Ginot, who once said that I have come to the frightening realization that I am the decisive element in the classroom. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. And the quote continues, but I'll stop there because I, Llewellyn van der Ros, I choose to be an instrument of inspiration. You will never know what you mean to those children. I ensure that I am prepared. And when I'm talking prepared, I'm talking about on a Sunday afternoon, I iron all my shirts for the week. I don't go to school with a t-shirt that is creased because I show up with respect for the profession and respect for them. I need to be somebody that they look up to. And it doesn't have to be a fancy shirt or an expensive shirt. That is a departure point for showing up. On a Sunday afternoon after lunch, I need to ensure that my bag is packed, that I have my things in my bag for the week, stationery, lesson plans, activities, etc. So I need to show up prepared. I need to show up for the learners. So that is the first point for me. Then it is about getting to know them. Who are they? Where do they come from? Telling them about me because they're fascinated about their teacher. They want to know, what does teacher do? Where does teacher come from? Is teacher married or not married? And also, I'm intentional about getting to know their slang, their dialogue, what makes them tick. So I'm not really big on TikTok, but I go onto TikTok to see what are the trends, 6, 7 that they are following. So I step into the class and I say 6, 7, and immediately they can relate to me because sir knows that. How does sir know that? That kind of thing. And it's innocuous things that you do to build a relationship with him. It was my birthday on Tuesday, and I got many gifts from the parents. Every year I'm showered with gifts, and I'm so eternally grateful for that. But I think one of the most expensive gifts that I got was a gift from a parent who wrote a handwritten letter. And we've had many challenges with this boy. We've walked a journey. And at the beginning of the year, I told her, I made this analogy of the 3-legged pot, the Portugal's pot, where the 3 legs represent me, the parent, and the child. And if one of those legs fall off, the pot will tilt and what is inside will then spill out. And we need to nurture what is inside. And she wrote that back to me. She said, we walked the path of the 3-legged pot. But the last part really stood out for me. She said, and I'm going to try and quote it as best as I can. She said, you've shown a sternness and a no-nonsense attitude, but you've also shown compassion and empathy. And that is what I want to be known for. I need to stand for something because otherwise I will fall for anything. I need to be firm with them. I need to show them tough love, but I also need to get to know them and connect with them. Children must have boundaries. Children want routine. Children want consistency. So those are the things that I have implemented in my class. And I promise you, I'm not perfect. I fall short. all of us fall short. I have developmental areas, but it's about recognizing that developmental areas and becoming a reflective practitioner. Children will test you to the core of your existence. They will challenge you in ways that you've never been challenged. But it's about becoming a reflective practitioner and saying, how am I going to navigate my way around this? How am I going to win this child over? And very important, in your lessons, in my lessons, I draw on real life examples. I bring their world into my lesson. I will never speak to them about flamingos because they don't know anything about flamingos. I will speak to them about pit bulls because they know pit bulls, and it's exciting to them. So it's that you constantly, it's a touch and go kind of thing where you are constantly trying to get into their world, making them feel safe also, making the classroom a safe space. I know it's become a faff word or a cliche, but it's critical. It is absolutely critical that the children know it's a safe space. But I've heard a lot from the student teachers. They would ask me, but how do you balance it so well? And I'm saying this with the greatest humility. These are their words. How do I balance it so well? I will take them to a point and we'll bring them back again. It's about you are the leader in that classroom. You are in control. You set the tone. And the classroom doesn't have to be a place where you are all day standing up like this. You know, that is actually the most exhausting thing, to be evil, to be an evil teacher. It's very exhausting. You don't want to be an evil teacher, but you want to set clear boundaries and you make them part of the rules of the classroom. You assign leadership roles to all of them in the classroom. They get turns to feel validated, to feel that they matter, that Sir sees me. And the first thing at the beginning of the year, before I even get that class list, before they come to school, I memorize their names out of my head so that they can say, oh, I say, Emily, oh, Sir knows my name. Now I need to be, I matter. I matter in this classroom. So yeah, those are some of the things.
No, thanks so much, Llewellyn. And I'm hearing very much the way you show up is critical because you are an influencer. You are an influencer in the classroom. You spend so much time with a learner, 40 of them, even more in the classroom. So you have an incredible and meaningful power to influence the mind and the heart. And I teach the nation. I'm just curious. We believe that what we mastered in a classroom or what we mastered with our colleague, we mastered for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, and that's a little bit personal, Llewellyn. You're very interested into knowing your learner and connecting with them. How do you do that for yourself? How do you build that awareness for yourself as a leader so that you can build that awareness for your learner also in your classroom?
You know, the critical thing for me is, and I really do consider myself to be a reflective practitioner, to constantly reflect on my practices. And that is the thing that has really sustained me. That is the thing that has really sustained me. Beyond that, I must say that I'm a departmental head, my deputy principal and we work very close together. And she really carries me and I carry her, and our principal as well. So we have a good support system at the school. We tap into each other for decision making. I'm also the head of discipline at the school. I carry a lot of hats at the school, but the support from the management team who are senior to me is incredible. We have our differences, and it is important that we do, because conflict shows that there's relationship, but it is how we navigate our way around conflict. And I'm very big on courageous conversations. Very, very big on courageous conversations. I feel that if we bottle things, I'm thinking of the champagne bottle analogy. You bottle things, you keep things to yourself. I speak. about what makes me unhappy. I speak about what makes me happy. We have a courageous conversation about it. We compromise, we synergize, we collaborate, and we find the best possible outcome for the school, not for Llewellyn, not for Ingrid, not for Emily, but for the school. What is the best outcome for the school? And the key ingredient in that, in my opinion, is being a reflective practitioner and having those courageous conversations. But that also comes with emotional resilience, and it comes with interpersonal relationship skills as well as intrapersonal relationship skills.
I'm learning so much from you, Llewellyn.
And I'm learning from you.
It's always good to listen to you. And just building on what Llewellyn is saying, Ingrid, how from your also very meaningful, like Llewellyn is saying, the support from the school management has been so fundamental to his own growth as a leader. How did you observe this dynamic when you leading your school and its impact on learner outcome? Taking, for example, the Llewellyn approach to classroom culture, how he show interest, how he show up, how he show them, he acknowledge his learners, and how he implement these different awareness in his classroom.
Llewellyn mentions quite a bit of things, and I agree with him that if teachers are in a positive space, they participate in professional development, they understand their why and why they are at school, then obviously the impact is that the beneficiaries of what we do is our learners. And so for me, one of the things that I observed was that because we had a culture of taking care of teachers, that we had a sense of belonging at school, teachers showed up and they showed off. They showed off in terms of what classrooms looked like. And they would say to me that this is the one place that many learners would have where they have their own space. And so why must the classroom look like I don't care, that I don't view them as important? But further to that, we then introduced a program in the first 10 days of a new academic year where we say, get to know your learners. And again, it was an intentional program so that teachers get to know the learners. We made time for it into it's normally baseline that first 10 days, but we then built in a program that's called Get to Know Your Learners. From grade R to grade 7, we intentionally looked at that. And so what did it mean for us as a staff is that teachers started having what we called FOMO, the fear of missing out. So people would come to school and they would actually be sick, and I would say, no, Emily, you can't be here. You need to go home. But if I go home, I'm going to miss out. What are you going to miss out? Whatever's going to happen here at school. And that to me was a great indicator that this is a place where people realize that this is where they come and work and learners come to learn. Okay, and so how did we see the impact was, one, Llewellyn mentioned learner discipline previously. When we resolved to change our learner code of conduct from a very punitive kind of approach to where everybody said, don't walk, don't talk, to a positive behavior intervention and support behavior model conduct, where we again intentionally in that 10 days taught children and modeled the kind of behavior we wanted. And this led us to having a slogan that says, be safe, be responsible, be respectful. And this was connected to a values program. And this then all played out in classrooms. And we saw the benefits or the impact in learner outcomes. So when I arrived at the school, the department does what they call a systemic test in grade 3 and 6. And so the school, I am quite embarrassed to say the score that the school had a score of 7%. And that's an external measuring tool. And there was just apathy for learning. And when we started implementing these things, we could see people were intentional because learners were acknowledged as the top 10 every term. The class was identified. There were things introduced like having breakfast with the principal because they excelled academically. And so you could only have breakfast with the principal if you had achieved above 90%. And so learners thrived to be in that top 10 in their classes because we would make time. Before I left in 2019, the school systemic test had moved beyond the 50%. And so those are some of the measurable things that you then identify to see that the learning outcomes has improved. But internally, our learning outcomes, the quality of teachers' assessments has changed. We could see that learner attendance were improving, that the referrals in terms of learner behavior reduced, and the referrals to the office. I think in 2019, I had about 7 cases that was referred for learner discipline to the office, and that was low. And so we like to use learning outcomes to measure, but I think in school there are other things that also should be used and could be looked at to measure how well you are doing as a school in terms of the wellness barometer of a school.
Wow, and that's so incredible, and that just resonate with I think all of us, how building an intentional, not just a classroom culture on well-being and development, a culture like holistic at school, intentional on well-being can actually make a really big impact and difference at different level. As a closing from both of you, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. What is actually your final message, starting with you, Llewellyn, that you will like to leave with our teacher leaders about prioritizing their well-being while making an impact in the classroom?
You know, I think the greatest message that I would leave with leaders, future leaders, is to be a reflective practitioner, to constantly reflect on your practices. And then at the center of everything is relationship building, because a happy worker is a productive worker. And once you get to build good relationships, that is when you see results. You see teachers who suffer FOMO, as Ingrid so aptly said, FOMO, fear of missing out of what is happening at school and what can they contribute. So you instill that intrinsically within them through relationship building. And so the key 2 things for me would be being a reflective practitioner, building relationships, and being intentional about building those relationships.
Thank you so much, Llewellyn. And from your side, Ingrid, in building an empire of well-being culture at your school, what will be your message to leaders in the sector?
I have 3 things. One is you can't pour from an empty cup. And so self-care is not selfish. Okay? And then for me, particularly for school leaders, well-being is not a luxury. In order for you to have a thriving school, it is one of the key responsibilities that you take on. So if you are applying for a senior management position in education, remember that it's not part of your job description. It is invisible, but it becomes part of the package that you take on. And so again, I say well-being is not a luxury, but it is a sign of when a school thrives, it means that well-being is taken care of. And then I want to end off with the words of Helen Keller to school leaders. Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And so surround yourself with people that are positive, people that you can draw from, and people that you can give back to, so that you build the kind of school that you would like to see for your own children and for your own family members. So make it personal in terms of the vision that you have for the school. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much, both of you. We truly grateful for the time, for the experience, and all the inspiration that was drawn into our conversation today. As we leave now, leading from a place of well-being. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.